Hey guys, day 23 of the 100-day challenge. It's the weekend here for us at the moment, so I'm a little bit casual and been to soccer and all that fun stuff. What I want to talk to you about today is actually something I had a download about while I was driving to soccer. I do know that most of us here on the planet are here to learn all about our emotions and about how to handle emotions. And if you can look at what's really currently going on at the moment on the planet, a lot of people are struggling to deal with their emotions. So if you look at, there's a section in the book Conversations with God from Neale Donald Walsch. He actually talks about how emotions in their purest state are actually quite healthy. What happens is the way that we process our emotions isn't really how we're meant to be dealing with them. The way we're meant to be dealing with emotions is that we're meant to just allow them to come up. We're meant to deal with them, to feel them, and then allow them to progress naturally in their natural state. However, we have been taught to push our emotions down and move on, and to maybe replace them with other things to make us feel better, all that sort of thing. And what it does is it holds the emotions within us, regardless of where that is. So that emotion can be held within us, and it gets held in different areas of our bodies, depending upon what caused that emotion or that issue to come up. Then once it's held in our bodies and we have that emotion pop up again in another area, it starts to pull in that area within our body and it starts to change the emotion. So I don't actually have the information here. I wish I did, but this has kind of just popped up as something I wanted to talk about. So I'm not really planned, but this is how we roll here. Is in this Conversations with God, they actually talk about the fact that anger is a natural emotion, and what anger does, it comes up and you're meant to feel it, and then you're meant to let it process and let it do its thing, and then eventually it just melts away. But by pushing anger down, it turns into rage, and that's where again human behavior changes from natural anger coming up to rage, which of course then causes murders and things like that. If we think about sadness, sadness is a natural emotion. If we allow sadness to come up, and if we allow it to ourselves to feel it and to sit in it for a little bit, what happens is eventually it just melts away and turns into, back into who you really are, which is naturally happy and joyful and pure love, which is who we really are. But sadness, when it's suppressed and pushed down and you try and move on, actually turns into depression. Again, that's just over time. It builds up and it builds up and it turns into something much worse than what it is. And then maybe frustration. So frustration in its natural state is a natural emotion. The frustration comes up. We're meant to sit in it. We're meant to feel it. We're meant to be okay with it, acknowledge it, and then it starts to melt away and goes. But again, frustration when it's allowed to build up and build up, again turns into rage. And so you can see that one of the biggest issues that we have on the planet at the moment is these base emotions have turned into much worse, much stronger emotions, which we just cannot handle. We're not meant to know how to handle this stuff. And what happens is it then affects our behaviors and changes who we are. So at the core of what we're meant to do, first off, what we need to do is we need to clear all this past build-up, which we do have really great mechanisms to be able to do this. But what we also need to do from now on is we need to know how to process our emotions, our natural emotions when they come up. This is one of the big essences of why we're here, is how we process emotions, because as humans on a planet, emotions is a massive part of our human experience. So when we have natural emotion come up, if we allow it to come up and we allow ourselves to feel it and process it in that natural way, then it literally does melt away and disappears, and then we're back to our natural state. So what I was shown today is, again, I don't know how I'm going to do this or where this goes. I'm just going to share with you guys because I'm sharing what's in my brain and what comes up for me, in the hope that the bigger picture will start to shift and change into creating a world of peace and joy and happiness, which I do know that we can end up doing this. So the bigger picture is saying, Kim, you need to create places, and first off it came through saying you need to create places that people can go, so when their natural emotions come up, they can process them straight away, rather than letting them get to that state where it's out of control. And so what I could see at that time when I was given that information is I could see a not-for-profit, free place that people could go to, physically go to, and they go in and they might spend a couple of days there, or even a day, whatever the emotion is and whatever the issue is that they're dealing with. Then process it healthily with a facilitator with them, and someone that not only that they're with, but also in a group process where everyone is dealing with the same thing, and they can also just process it together. So there's a combination of a bit of group work and also some one-on-one facilitation of processing the natural emotion, and then they can then go back to their lives and get on with it pretty much without the suppression and the blockages of what's gone on, and not holding on to it. Something that I've shown recently where someone is just going through the death of a loved one who has massive grief and a lot of loss, pain, all that sort of thing. Now, what needs to happen for that person is there should be a facility that they go to. Like if anyone goes through loss, if anyone goes through pain of loss and grief, there should be a facility that they can go to where they process that pain and loss. Like, I'm actually getting quite emotional talking about it because I'm really passionate about it. And wouldn't it be great if whoever goes through any kind of stuff, that they could go to a place and be nurtured and let them process that stuff and let them really feel it, but know that they're fully supported and given tools at that time for them then to leave the facility okay with what's happened, and they feel okay about it. Because when we go on this journey called life, what I'm seeing is people are going through death after death after death, or loss after loss after loss, or trauma after trauma after trauma. And what that tells me is the initial experience that happened to them, or the one that they had, has not been processed in a way that's something that they can work out or get through. And again, law of attraction then it gives them more of that experience and more of that experience and more of that experience until they literally have a breakdown. So I'm seeing it time and time again. You notice how some people go through like one person will just go through the trauma of rape, or trauma of abuse, or trauma of death, or whatever. And it seems that the same people it happens to. And it's what that tells me from a spiritual health point of view is that the first one wasn't dealt with healthily. And this is what I'm talking about, spiritual health. Maybe this called spiritual health places that people can go to, and their spirit and their soul can be nurtured during this human experience. And then they don't have to have those experiences anymore because it's released naturally in a natural process, rather than suppression or band-aid solutions, or again coping mechanisms such as drug or alcohol, because the stuff is still in here. So I'm putting it out there. I have been shown this and I thought, great, I'm really passionate. I'd love to do something that's a free, not-for-profit kind of facility and set them up everywhere that people can go to be able to process their emotions. And then driving back from soccer, I got another thought of, well, we need to do it also online for those who don't get to go to those facilities. And I don't know what's next on this journey, but I really believe that this whole scenario around processing emotions is really powerful. I think that we can really change the world by people being able to process their own emotions healthily rather than pushing them down and using coping mechanisms to deal with them. I'm putting it out there. I'm talking about it. I would love to do something with it. I don't really know what it looks like, but let's just see what happens. If you think it's a great idea, message below or whatever. But let's just see. This is me processing this emotion of, I'm really passionate about helping people with their spiritual health and their emotional health. And I know, because I know that this is what creates physical health. This is what creates mental health. This is what creates, the world's basic health needs. And, if we had facilities like this, there wouldn't be really any need for, people breaking down or facilities breaking down. Like anything that we need, the health system could completely shift simply by us dealing with our emotions in a healthy manner and having facilitators being able to work in that capacity. But for this to be available to everyone, not just people who have the money to do it, and whether there can be funding for that, I don't really know. I'm just going to share with you my ramble and the thoughts that come in. I do believe that they are divinely guided. So if anyone wants to jump in or help or whatever, I don't even know what it looks like. I'm happy. I'm happy just to start with me and go from there. Let's get our spiritual health and our emotional health on track, because that's where our relationships work. That's where our lives work. That's where our physical health works. And let's start taking control of this, because it's completely up to us. But it starts with our emotional health, and our emotions are there for a really big reason. And our purpose here is to deal with them as they come up, not when we have the breakdowns, not when we have the panic attacks, not when we have the overwhelm or the stress or whatever, because they are the emotions that haven't been dealt with properly from the word go. So putting it out there, I don't know how it looks. I'll keep sharing with what comes up, but emotional and spiritual health is so incredibly important. And I was given the download today that facilities to be able to do this on a healthy basis with some kind of funding and free capacity would be really awesome. So let's just spread that energy out there, and let's just see what comes back, and hopefully we can do something about this. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow.